5 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. I may be late, but I'm in the game, Robin. I joined the 21st century back in October.
Oh, okay.
Although I say that with tongue-in-cheek only because I just got a smartphone, which is cool. I love it. And since then, I even have an iPad. How about that, huh?
Wow.
iPhone and iPad.
But
you know, we've been using technology and the advances in technology to make our lives easier for a long time now. I mean, here in this business, radio, obviously, it has made a huge difference. And my own son, obviously, your son and daughter, actually, working in the veterinary field, technology is just part of their everyday life, right?
Yes.
So what happens to the jobs? You hear so many stories. Like I heard one time that the iPhone is actually made in like dozens of countries or something. It's like all over the place. I don't know if that's good or bad, but somebody on the phone does know. We have a lady on the phone. Hilarie Gamm is the name she's going by. My notes say that's not her real name. But for over 25 years, she has been at the front line of America's high-tech industry. She's a nationally recognized leader in technology, manager of IT departments, and the book is called Billions Lost. And the book is doing really well on Amazon, which is, by the way, another product of technology, is the whole Amazon phenomenon, isn't it?
Exactly.
Let's say good morning. Hilarie, I know I don't know your real name, but I'll have to call you by your fake name. Good morning, Hilarie.
Hi, how are you, sir? Thank you for having me on your show today.
Thank you. Where are you calling from?
Northeast. Up in, we're expecting a big snowstorm.
You got another snowstorm. Wow.
Yeah, another one coming. Had a big one last week, another one coming.
Can we blame technology? Is that the problem?
No.
But you know what? Technology does help me look at the weather map. I mean, who knew you could do this one day? I mean, you used to have to wait for the weather report on TV. Now you can just call it up on your phone.
Yep, it's amazing, isn't it?
So your book is called Billions Lost, and you're getting really, really good reviews. So those who are in the know are agreeing with you, also in the know. So help us, those of us who don't know, what's going on, and should we be worried?
A lot's going on, and yes, I think every American citizen should be worried. The book was written basically because I felt that there was a need for people to understand some of the true facts associated with H-1B visas and associated with the tech industry and what's happening in terms of cybersecurity, education, and our children and the future generations and how it all kind of impacts the middle class.
Okay. Now, this actually covers something that happened 18 years ago, the whole switching over from the 1900s to the 2000s. Was that a planned thing? Was that like were we being scared intentionally?
No, I don't think we were being scared intentionally. I think what happened, I talk about the book, people want to understand today, how is it that we're sending so many jobs out of the U.S. and losing trillions of dollars to the U.S. economy? And it was not on purpose. It was happenstance. I call it a perfect storm in the book. What happened was there was a lot of people and our government, its government, who were very concerned that when the clocks turned to January 1st, 2000, all our computer systems were going to go down. And that kind of cracked the door open for allowing tech workers from other countries to immigrate to the U.S. and start quote-unquote, helping us because we didn't have enough qualified workers. We were told that at the time. And so that was kind of the beginning of the end. That, coupled with a couple other things, during the 1990s, Microsoft, which was a leader in technology then, still a leader in technology today, was sued by temp workers. And so there were thousands of people working for Microsoft, and because they weren't receiving benefits. So what happened with that is that when the employees weren't receiving benefits, Microsoft said, hey, we don't want to be in this position again. We don't want to be compromised again. So they actually looked to offshore to workers outside the U.S. So you have one of the biggest technology companies looking to hire people outside the U.S. so they're not sued. and they're not put in a compromising position. And at the same time, shortly thereafter, you have a nation scared and worried about their computer systems going down. So what happened was one of our very big allies, India, the country of India, became the #1 provider of tech labor to the United States and still is today.
Okay, and does that explain why when you call for tech support, you often are speaking to somebody with an Indian accent?
It does. Interestingly enough, one of the first things to go offshore, one of the first things to be sent to another country from a technology perspective was the help desk, was when you call those 800 numbers.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people are under the misconception today that that's the only thing that we're sending offshore. In fact, that's actually the first thing that's coming back to the U.S. because so many customers have so many complaints because it's hard for them to understand and communicate with those folks that are in a foreign country, just because sometimes they have a different accent or because they're not quite understanding what they're saying.
Right.
But the majority of jobs in the U.S. today are actually in India today.
So now I had a pretty good experience. I know what you're saying about having a hard time understanding, but if you just kind of paid attention, it wasn't so hard to understand. And I had a good experience. I don't remember what the company name was. It was like Guru or something. I had one of those names. But they were actually, this was my first experience with having tech support work on my computer from a different place. I where you sit back and you watch the cursor move and somebody else is doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
they work remotely.
yeah, and so that was really a good experience for me. But I hear what you're saying. So what else was sent offshore?
Pretty much everything's been sent offshore, and that's why I wrote the book. Educate people like you in terms of what's actually going on.
Yeah.
So today in the United States, in the tech industry, we have virtually every single American industry that you can think of sending their tech labor offshore. So not just technology companies, but grocery stores, banks, insurance companies, healthcare providers, they all have their technology folks working in a different country.
And I'm not sure I understand why. Is it because we want to have a higher paycheck? Is that what it is?
Well, the reason why is we're a capitalist society, right? And we have companies that are responsible to their shareholders. Public companies are responsible to their shareholders, and they need to make a profit. And right now, the policies that are in place in the U.S. don't prohibit companies from hiring outside the U.S. So there's a few things at play. One of the things that's at play is that the laborers in foreign lands earn far less than Americans. American companies don't have to provide benefits or insurance or educate or give sick time or leave when they hire folks outside the U.S. And they save money. And unfortunately, it has dire effects for our country, both from a security perspective, from a data perspective, from an education perspective.
Help me understand, Hilarie. Help me understand how it compromises security. Are they? I guess I'll just leave it at that because I don't even know how to ask that question.
Sure. So I'll give you one of the examples I provide in the book because everyone in the United States can relate to it. So healthcare, domestic healthcare, when you go see a doctor, is something everyone in the U.S. is familiar with. We all see doctors. We all have insurance. So the largest health insurance companies in the country, a majority of their tech labor is offshore. They work in foreign lands, India, China, Kenya, South Africa, Ireland, Costa Rica, wherever. And what happens is if you go to the doctor and you have an insurance form and it's getting filled out, on my website just last week or the week before, I put a blog up about 100 technology jobs leaving Massachusetts under Partners Healthcare, which was in the Boston Globe a couple weeks ago. So what happens is the people that typically are putting in the procedures that you're having done at the hospital so that you can get reimbursed from your insurance and so that your doctor and care providers can know how your health care is being provided and where the work is, where you're being seen, and where potentially you need to be covered. That used to be done by Americans. And I just put in the blog just last week, that work is now going to be sent offshore. So Partners is going to lay off the people in the U.S. and give that job, those 100 jobs, to people sitting somewhere else. So they'll be looking at your healthcare records.
Wow.
Right? So that's an example of healthcare, and health records are pretty private. In the United States, we have something called HIPAA, HIPAA, and we have to sign those HIPAA forms when we go to a doctor. So think of how that data is being not necessarily compromised, but being in a position to be compromised when it's being sent over the internet or a company's intranet and being worked on by people in another country.
And that's something that the technology people didn't really foresee, I think, because I know I worked for two large companies, and when they installed their computer systems, they each had a mainframe. Nothing went anywhere except for that mainframe because the internet still wasn't there. It was all intercompany.
Right, exactly. And so as we've had the progression of technology, client-server computing and now cloud computing, where everything's on the net, it exposes our country and our data, our institutions and our government to be hacked.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I guess I just don't understand how, well, first of all, maybe how isn't even important for me, but why our elections could be hacked. Why do we even need to have the voting machines hooked up to the internet? Why is that even necessary?
Well, interesting that you said that. So think about it. You just talked about getting your new phone. That handheld device is very powerful. Every single piece of technology that's connected to the internet can be hacked. One of the things I talk about in the book, I reference all different kinds of examples of companies that have been compromised, Equifax being compromised. Just every possible company, institution, government agency can be hacked. So the reason that these things are now open and susceptible to hacking is that data now is like the old oil, right? You have oil down in the ground, it has to be refined, and it can be used. Well, data's the same way. There's billion, quadrillion, gazillion bits and bytes of data. And when you distill it and boil it down, you can get a lot of market analysis and you can sell. And so there's a lot of power to data. So why does all the election data get put into a format that then could be hacked?
Yeah.
Well, there's people that can benefit from it. There's trends that people want to spot. They want to take that data, perform something that's called data analytics, and figure out how to help their candidate win in the future, or figure out why their candidate. Oh my gosh,
really? And it just seems like such a bad trade-off. That for what the possibility is when you could be hacked. Does this play into the thing? Okay, well, every once in a while we'll hear that our phones are made by slave labor. Is that part of this too?
Well, absolutely, it's part of it. Apple announced, I think about 8 months ago, that they'd be bringing some of the manufacturing of their Apple iPhones back to the States. But clearly, so let's understand the bigger picture so you all and your audience can understand. When we sent car manufacturing out of the U.S., we sent the car manufacturing and then all of those things that go with car manufacturing, right? So it had a huge impact on the United States because all of the components that go into cars, all the people that work on those cars, and then all of the technologies that improve the manufacturing of automobiles, like robotics and all of that all is done outside the U.S. to a great degree, and it has a huge impact. Same is true with technology. So when we create technology and innovate here in the U.S., but then we send it offshore, over time, we don't have folks in the U.S. who are innovating any longer or who own those markets.
Yeah.
People in the foreign countries who are working on it, who are learning about it, who are, industrial espionage is huge. It's another big piece of the book that I talk about, where we have foreign governments that pay people to come to the U.S. who come in physically to our companies to steal how we do things.
Do you know, my son, I have no idea what he does, but I've asked him, what do you do? and he showed me one time on his laptop in order for me to understand, and I still didn't understand, but this is what I think he does. He works for an energy company, and I guess that's liquid propane or something like that. I don't know what, but his daily job, every single day, is to figure out ways that somebody could hack into their company, and then making sure that there's a way that somebody doesn't do that. Every single day, that's his job, and he's not the only one doing it for that company. So I found that fascinating that every single day, and I'm guessing this happens with every single business, there's a team of people whose main job is to figure out how a bad guy is going to be a bad guy.
How they're going to infiltrate their data and infiltrate their technology ecosystem. But sadly, we don't have enough people like yourself. We don't have enough people in the U.S. being educated and taking those jobs. And that's a really big, very important piece of the book.
So did we do this to ourselves? It sounds like that's what you're saying, that the reason that job is necessary is because we messed up.
I think there's no blame to be placed on any one particular thing, but through our government policies, through our education system, through our globalistic ideas, and through basically, corporate America, we've really put ourselves in a position that we really should not be in, and it's very dire. Not only to our economy, but to our education, to our future, to our personal safety, our personal security, and that of our children and our grandchildren. It's very serious.
So who creates the government computer system? I mean, there are so many servers out there. I mean, Hillary Clinton had her own private server. I mean, who vets those servers so none of the secrets are, given away?
Yeah, good questions that you're asking. You guys are phenomenal. Those are really important questions. We have millions of servers all over the country in all different industries and also in the government that we hope are protected. Part of the U.S. government has a group, a team, CIA, FBI. We don't have one unit that's kind of responsible for technology, for everything to do with technology in the U.S., which I think we need. I think we need a Secretary of Technology in the United States. I think that would be a very important post to kind of have somebody who could negotiate with our leaders in corporate America that are the tech titans, the Facebooks and the Amazons and the Googles, and then also be able to protect our government data and make sure that we have a full ecosystem and cybersecurity that really is pushing the envelope. For robotics, we have DARPA. DARPA kind of pushes the robotics envelope for the U.S., but also for the world globally. DARPA creates contests where we have people from all over the world who compete. And we need the same in the U.S. from a cybersecurity perspective. China has over 100,000 people who only work for the government in their cybersecurity area. In the U.S., we're at a bit of a disadvantage, right? Because our best technology minds go make lots of money when they get out of college or getting their PhDs at our big technology corporations. And so there's less of a pull and less of an opportunity to get them into our government to be protecting our government data because we have this private sector pull. So it's a challenge. And so these are very important questions and the very reason I wrote the book.
And I'm guessing we don't even know which questions to ask. Let me just re-mention who you are. Hilarie Gamm is our guest. That is not her real name. We don't know her real name. But the book is called Billions Lost, The American Tech Crisis and the Roadmap to Change. This book is really doing well. You are in the category of outsourcing, number 22. On Amazon, out of millions of books that are on there. So obviously people are paying attention to what you're saying. Are you do you use a pseudonym because you work? Are you working currently? It sounds like, I hope you are working for us,
yes,
for the government.
I'm not working for the government, but yes, sir, I am fully employed, yes.
Okay, and so what you do is, the second part of the title, by the way, the roadmap to change, that implies that there's maybe some light at the end of the tunnel. Is that right?
That's right. At the end of the book, I put in my 20 best ideas to make things better in the U.S., to really make a big difference for technology and also for the middle class. One of the things I talk about in the book, I can kind of shift topics a little bit. I talk about, the need to engage teenagers in our workforce again. One of the big things we hear today all the time is that we have these really low unemployment rates. And what's interesting is that we have the lowest participation rate of teenagers working today than we have in any generation in the U.S. past. And from a worker perspective, workers between the age of 35 and 54, lowest labor participation rate since the Great Depression for white Caucasian men. And so what I want to make sure people shine a serious light on is the fact that we have a lot of folks that have left our labor force that we need to re-engage. And before we look offshore to other countries to take these technology jobs within the U.S. at our government institutions, in our private sector, at our biggest corporations, and all the companies in between, I'd like to see Americans working and Americans having an opportunity.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Certainly.
Oh my gosh, I hope somebody's paying attention to what you're saying. It sounds like you've thought this out, and we need to be listening to you. Are we? Is America? Is our government listening to this message?
Sir, this is my very first radio interview. I wrote this book independently. I did it because I felt that there was a need to educate Americans on what's truly going on. And I did it because, not for my own, personal benefit. What the contents of the book, it's not about me or selling me. I'm just a messenger. But I was a witness to watching so many Americans lose their jobs, so many women particularly leave the tech field because they're being harassed or demeaned or not giving opportunity or being passed over. I've seen so many men and women over the age of 55, whether they were originally from the United States or whether they came to the United States to work and then became American citizens, lose their jobs. Early retired, outsourced, fired, and it's awful. And at some point, you have to stand up and say,
right,
America deserves better, and Americans deserve a chance. Americans deserve a chance to work in the tech field.
Oh my gosh! I hope you run for office, a different Hillary. Do you know? So here's the irony here: is that the book is called Billions Lost, and it sounds like we lost billions in an effort to save billions. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like our technology companies did this because they wanted to save money, and in a sense, we lost money.
That's true. We've lost trillions. Since the 1990s, it's trillions and trillions. I mean, it could even potentially be as much as our national debt. I mean, it's huge. And we've lost our industry, and we've lost our education. That's what really bothers me is that we have America's youth of today. One of the things that I recommend in the book is that, I talk to the fact that in many ways technology has enhanced education, right, for our children and made things better in some ways.
Yeah.
And in many, it's made it, ridiculously awful. I mean, kids today don't even have time to learn to wash their hands, right, because their curriculum is so packed. I mean, children today don't know how to write cursive, right? They want to teach them how to type on the board, but they don't want to teach how to sign their name.
Right.
Well, what's going to happen 100 years from now when none of the population of the United States can read cursive? They won't even be able to read our first
oh my
article.
gosh, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I hope the president hears this, or our congressman, or somebody hears this, and because I think our elected officials maybe they're a little bit better than I am at understanding all of this, but I think they need to be. I just need to be in order to do this interview. They need to be in order to make this country better. Hilarie Gamm, thank you so much for being on the show. Billions Lost is the book. I found it on Amazon, and it's doing well, and I know it's available as a Kindle. Do you have a website you want to recommend?
BillionsLostBook.com.
BillionsLostBook.com. Hilarie, good luck with this. Thank you for doing this. I think you are actually making a huge contribution to the rest of us.
Thank you, sir, for having me on the show.
Thank you. All right, we'll be right back.
only one
On
that
Saturday the
survived.
17th, the City of Ocala and Insight Credit Union present the Sculpture Stroll Celebration, a fun event for the entire family from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the Art Park with a scavenger